I thought the HP Reverb G2 was good, really good. But after tasting the Pimax Crystal Super, yeah, there's no going back. I'll get straight into the facts. I'm reviewing the Pimax Crystal Super QLED 57 PPD headset, which was sent to me for review. I'll be approaching this from a flight sims player's perspective, and I'll also take a close look at how it stacks up against my old trusty HP Reverb G2. I'm not paid for this, and everything you hear is my own honest opinion. Before I get into the details, here's a quick rundown of my VR background. I've used the HTC Vive, Oculus CB1, and HP Reverb G2. The jump from CB1 to G2 was massive, from barely readable instruments to actually flyable. The G2 has been working great for the past 5 years or so, and if I couldn't upgrade, I would still be just fine with it. Let's get to the pros and cons first. Pros. Super clear lenses. Holy moly. I thought the HP Reverb G2 was good, but this isn't a small upgrade. It's a whole different ballgame. The ultra high resolution lenses genuinely made me feel like I was looking at my 2K LG monitor, not a VR headset. The sweet spot is also way larger. I can clearly read things even at the corners without shifting my head. The G2 simply cannot do that. Eye tracking. It worked right out of the box. I still ran the calibration to be safe, but honestly, the default was already accurate. Combined with dynamic foveated rendering, performance stays surprisingly stable. I usually get around 60 to 80 FPS, though heavy maps and modules like the Marianas, West Germany, OH58 and F4 Phantom modules do tend to perform lower. Considering this headset pushes more than 3 times the G2's pixels, the performance is shockingly better on the same PC. And with some tweaking, I got even smoother frame times across most maps. Automatic IPD adjustment. The motorized auto IPD is genuinely convenient. You can let it auto-detect or override it manually in Pimax Play. For me, the automatic mode works great. No fiddling with physical sliders. 4. Heat and comfort. I struggled to use the G2 longer than 40 to 50 minutes because it would heat up and steam my face. The Crystal Super is noticeably cooler. Yes, it gets warm, but I can play for over 2 hours without significant discomfort. Even though the G2 is lighter, the Crystal Super's head strap and rear tightening knob are far more comfortable and precise. 5. Inside-out tracking. Tracking is solid, and I only had a few small hiccups. My room is dim, not ideal for inside-out, yet the Crystal Super handled it well. The G2 loses tracking far more often, and when that happens mid-combat, yeah, you know the pain. 6. The Crystal Super uses Pimax's own native OpenXR runtime. It doesn't rely on Windows Mixed Reality at all. With Windows 11 dropping mixed reality support, G2 owners basically have to freeze Windows updates or risk breaking VR. With the Crystal Super, I can update Windows normally. Huge relief. Now the cons. Account registration. Now, I understand why they made it necessary to register an account to use the Pimax Play software, but I still think it should have been optional. I really don't like having to register an account just to use something I already own. Cooling fan noise. Not loud, but noticeable in a quiet room. It disappears if you use your own headphones, but it's still there. Hefty price. Coming in at about $1,800 US, that's quite expensive and painful. But honestly, it comes with the features cheaper headsets simply don't. Narrow field of view is definitely wider than the G2. Noticeable, but not dramatic. If you want wide field of view gaming, the 140-degree optical module is probably the better choice. For me, this one is fine, but you should know what to expect. eye tracking and foveated rendering artifacts. These features are amazing for performance, but the square high resolution zone can be quite noticeable at first. With some tweaking, you can eliminate most of the artifacts around the boundary. And my brain adapted pretty quickly, but during the first few sessions, it was definitely noticeable. Okay-ish audio. Default audio is just okay. It gets better at high volume, but lacks bass compared to the G2. I didn't get to test the DMAS audio module because Pimax didn't send it. And honestly, at this price point, that upgrade really should have been included by default. Heavy weight. It comes in at around 920 grams, almost twice the weight of the G2. By the way, the scale I'm using isn't super precise, so keep that in mind. That said, the head strap makes the weight manageable, especially for seated gameplay. But if you are sensitive to heavier headsets, you'll definitely start to feel it during longer sessions. Visual quality and performance. The first time I put on the Crystal Super, it honestly blew me away. The G2 already has good lenses, but this is on a completely different level. The massive sweet spot means I don't have to constantly adjust the headset like with the G2. Everything stays sharp, even near the edges. With its insane 57 ppd pixels per degree and 3840 by 3840 per eye resolution, that's over 29 million pixels per frame. I was sure my PC wouldn't be able to handle it, but thanks to eye tracking and dynamic foveated rendering, performance stays smooth in most scenarios. I usually get above 70 FPS with dips only on heavy modules like the F14, F4, or OH58. Now, on paper, you'd think the G2 should perform better because it runs at a much lower resolution. But in real gameplay, that just wasn't true. I tested both headsets using the exact same graphics settings, and even though the Crystal Super sometimes shows lower FPS, it actually feels smoother. The Crystal Super gives me more consistent frame pacing, stable head movement with fewer to no micro stutters, better motion clarity thanks to eye-tracked foveated rendering. Meanwhile, the G2 suffers from jitters and uneven frame pacing, occasional tracking hiccups, a smaller sweet spot that makes tiny head movements feel like the image is swimming. So despite pushing more than 3 times the pixels, the Crystal Super still outperforms the G2 in almost every meaningful way. Hand controllers and accessories. Everything you need comes in the box. Great packaging, multiple power plug types, a slightly large power brick, a screwdriver, and spare bolts for swapping optical modules. Nicely done. Included controllers are rechargeable via USB-C. Track fine, nothing special, but fully functional. After spending a good amount of time with the Pimax Crystal Super, here is my honest take. This headset is not perfect. Just like my imperfect English, heavy accent, and questionable pronunciation. It's heavy, pricey, the default audio is okay at best, the cooling fans make noise, and auto IPD can act up. The FOV, the field of view isn't as wide as I hoped either, but the visual clarity, the massive sweet spot, the performance boost from eye tracking, the comfort, and the overall image quality absolutely overshadow those flaws. If you're a sim player, especially flight sims, and you want the clearest and sharpest VR cockpit experience available right now, the Crystal Super is on a different level. It made my G2 feel obsolete the moment I put it on. So is it worth the price tag of $1,800? If visual clarity and rendering performance matter the most to you, absolutely. That said, a more aggressive price would have made this headset an instant no-brainer. If you want something simpler, cheaper, and plug and play, there are other options. And honestly, if Pimax ever makes a headset with the size, weight, and audio of the G2, but with the Crystal Super's clarity and heat control under $1,000, then I would recommend it to everyone without any hesitation. Nevertheless, if you got the budget and don't mind the extra weight, I would say go for it. I hope this video helped you decide on your next VR headset. And if you liked it, please consider liking and subscribing. It's a huge boost to the channel and to my fragile ego. Alright, fly safe out there, and I'll see you in the skies.